Hey, what's up guys? I'm Ryan from ExtremeTerrain, and today I'm going to show you how to install the Smittybilt SRC Cage. Now before we get started with this installation, I just want to go over a few details about this product. So if you're looking to add some support to your factory roll bar and stiffen it up a little bit, you should be checking out the Smittybilt SRC Cage. If you've ever been off-roading and you found yourself in an instance where you could risk a rollover, you know that a product such as this could be very beneficial. Coming in at just over $600, this kit is a great buy, and whether you're a hardcore enthusiast, weekend warrior, or just looking for that aesthetic appearance, you really can't go wrong with this kit. This is a pretty simple bolt-on installation with no drilling or modifications required, and should take you just under a day with the help of a friend. One thing I would like to point out is you will need to remove your factory soundbar to install this cage. With that being said, let's jump into the installation. Now the first step, we're going to remove the upper bolt from the seatbelt shoulder strap. We're going to use a T50 Torx to do that. We're going to save the factory hardware. So first you want to lift this cover up and then remove this bolt. Next step, we're going to remove this plastic cover. Then we're going to use that same T50 Torx to remove this upper and lower bolt. We'll do the same thing for the other side. We're going to lift this cover up and use our T50 to remove this bolt. I'm going to pop the cover off and remove this slider. The next step is to remove the soundbar. Now there are two T30 Torx bit screws on both sides, and we'll have to unplug the harness as well. So we're going to peel up the fabric from the side and expose those bolts, and then we'll remove them. So next we're going to unplug the soundbar. You're just going to press down on this little clip here and unplug that, and we'll let that hang down. Then we'll go take the two screws out of the other side. So with all of our hardware removed and our wiring harness unplugged, we're ready to remove the soundbar. The next step is to remove the padding from the roll bar. Before we do that, we're going to remove this upper bolt from the seatbelt harness so we can get this section off. Now you're going to do the same thing we did for the front. You're going to pry this cover up. If the cover is stuck slightly, you can use a flathead screwdriver. Just insert it in there, pry it up slightly, and then we'll use our T50 Torx to remove those bolts. So we're just going to leave this bolt in here because after we get this padding off, we're going to put that right back on. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. Since this front section does not have a zipper, we're going to go ahead and cut it off. So now that we have all of the padding removed, the next step, we're going to install the center portion of the roll cage. So we're going to go ahead and place this onto the roll bar just as so. So now that we have our center section on, we're going to take our clamp, place that over, and then we're going to use one of the long Allen head bolts that they provide with the kit and screw that in. Same thing goes for the other side. Place our clamshell on, and we'll get that bolt started. So now that we have our back section supported, we're gonna go ahead and get started on the front side. So we're gonna use 2 of our clamshell pieces and the 7/8 inch long bolts that they provide. Next, we're going to take our second piece and go ahead and get that started on the back side. Now, once we have these 3 in, we're going to go ahead and get this one started. Once we have this one started, we're going to go ahead and get this one started. Now we're ready to do the other side. So the next step is to install the rear bar. The rear bar is going to go halfway down the curve on the rear of the roll bar. Due to variances in the width of these roll bars, you are going to need to use a ratchet strap to pull them a little closer. So what we're going to do right now is hook this up, try to crank them a little bit closer. Now that we used our ratchet strap to pull the roll bars in a little further, and we've got this thing to fit, we're gonna go ahead and get our clamps started. We'll be using the slightly wider clamps for this particular rear section, using the same method we did for the front. So now that we have our rear crossbar installed, we're going to install our cross braces. These are going to attach to this center section and to the side of this roll bar. First, we're going to get this front side started with a 1 1/4 inch long Allen head bolt. Now once we have that bolt in, we'll go ahead and put our clamshells on this side. Now for this, we're going to use our largest clamshells that they provide, and we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to get all of these started, and for these, you're going to use the 1 inch long Allen head bolts that they provide. Same thing with the other side. We're going to start with the front with a 1 1/4 inch bolt. So the next step, we're going to take 4 of our 1 1/4 inch long Allen head bolts, and we're going to insert those up through the cross braces in center section. So at this point in time, you're going to have 4 large clamshell pieces left. That's to complete the rest of this center section where it reaches this roll bar. So we're going to use the last bit of our 1-inch hardware to install those. So the next step, we're going to install the piece of cage that attaches to the dash. To gain better access, we're going to remove the door. To do this, we're going to open the door, remove the pull strap, and lift our door up and off. Next step, we're going to remove the speaker cover and speaker. So the next step, we're going to remove these 3 bolts from the dash using a T30 Torx bit. Now the reason we remove the speaker is so we can gain access to not only get the clip nuts off, but we're going to install plates back there when we bolt our new piece on. So now that we've removed these 3 screws, you're going to go ahead and pry your dash forward slightly. And you want to remove these clips off of the back side. So we're going to do that by just prying that up and off. Do the same thing with this bottom one down here. So now that we have all 3 of those clips removed, we're going to go ahead and push our dash back up and in. Now we're going to take the side of our cage and we're going to go ahead and place this on here. However, we're going to attach this top section first. So we're going to take our clamp halves and we're going to get this up and in place and get this started. And that should hang in place now. And we can go ahead and get these other 2 started. Get our other side installed. So now that we have our front bar on, we're going to slide that bar all the way forward till it's flush up here. Then we're going to take a plate, we're going to put it on the back side reaching through the speaker hole, and then we're going to insert our bolts. Now the bolts we're using have a rounded head and they use the slightly smaller Allen key. So now that we have all 4 of our bolts in with the bolt plates on the back side, you're ready to reinstall your speaker and then put the cover back on. And we're going to reinsert our screws to hold our speaker cover on. We're going to do the same thing for the passenger side using that same T30 Torx bit. So once you have all of the clips off, you're gonna push the dash back. Then we're gonna set our bar up in place, and then we'll get started with the top. We're gonna do the same thing as the other side. Next, we'll remove our speaker cover and our speaker. So now that we have our piece slid in place, I'm going to go ahead and insert our nut plate behind, and then just get all these bolts in. Once you have the bracket on, you can plug your speaker back in and reinstall it. Then we can reinstall our cover and put our side screws back in. So now that we have both sides on, we're ready to install the crossbar for the windshield. This is going to go in between the two and bolt on with the long Allen head screws. Now that we have the pieces interlocked, we're going to go ahead and insert a bolt facing towards the windshield. And then we're going to have one face the other way as well. Now that we have this side on, we're ready to go get the other side on. So we're just about ready to tighten up our cage, but before we do that, we're going to install our seat belts. Now at this point in time, you're ready to reinstall your roll bar padding. However, since we're not reinstalling that, we're just going to get started with our brackets. So now that we have our adjuster on, we're going to slap our cover back on. And then we can reinstall our shoulder harness. Once you've got that bolt tight, go ahead and clip that cover. Same thing goes for the rear. If you want to put your padding back on, now is the time to do so. However, we're just going to put our seatbelt back on. Same thing goes for the other side on the rear. Same thing goes for the front. We're going to install our adjuster using that T50 Torx bit. After we have that tight, we're going to slap our cover back on. Reinstall our shoulder belt. So now we're ready to tighten our cage up. We're going to use a 6mm socket to tighten all the bolts down. Now for these 3 bolts, we're going to use a 5mm Allen key. So now that everything's tightened up and you have your seat belts back on, you're ready to reinstall your doors. Now the last step is to install the provided foam. Smittybilt provides you with enough to install over the whole entire kit. This is an optional process and not absolutely necessary. I personally like the look of the bare cage. However, I'm going to show you how to install this so you can see how everything looks. So to install this foam, you're just going to peel open the Velcro. Inside is a foam sleeve. That's going to wrap around the roll bar, and then you're going to Velcro it on. So we're going to place our foam over, wrap our fabric around, and then we'll Velcro that tight. Now there are 2 sections with a kinked end. Those go around these rear crossbars. So we're just going to install our foam around there, and then we'll get our sleeve on. So now that I'm finished with my installation, there's a few points that I'd like to cover. First, it's a pretty simple bolt-on installation, so I'm going to give it about 2 out of 3 wrenches. A couple nice features: it does add grab handles, the powder coating's pretty on point, the parts seem to fit great, and it adds a ton of support to the factory roll bar. Another nice feature is with or without the roll bar padding, it will fit under your soft top or hard top. And even when comparing it to more expensive kits, for the amount of bracing you receive and the quality materials, this makes it one of the better options. Now with that being said, that wraps up our review and install of the Smittybilt SRC Cage Kit. For more videos like this, check us out at ExtremeTerrain.com.